Hey everybody, just a little add-on to Lorraine Workman's Viking 6370 that has already been premiered at this point. It would have been premiered on Monday, January 11th at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. And when I usually put together the premieres, I also incorporate pictures from Facebook. Well, in this instance, and you can see right now I'm in the packing process, which is also part of this impromptu premiere as well. But I usually will incorporate pictures, progress shots from Facebook. I excluded a group of photos that really are pretty critical in telling the story about the journey that I took this machine on from the time that Lorraine Workman bought it on eBay and then received the machine and then all of a sudden discovered it was not what she thought it had, what it was supposed to have been. The seller had not told the complete story for either lack of integrity or lack of knowledge. So that's how this machine ended up here at the workshop. Lorraine bought it on eBay and then all of a sudden got it and like, oh boy, this is not what I expected it to be. Combination of rust and just a long list of things. So let me first of all share those pictures with you that I did not include in the original premiere that would have been shown again on January 11th at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. So if you haven't seen that premiere, you'll want to watch that premiere so you really get the rest of the story along with these pictures. So here's an opening shot, and again, from an appearance standpoint on the outside, when you first look at this machine, it doesn't look bad. It's, again, a good-looking Colormatic series machine, 6370. And it's got some pretty good looking lines on it, and it presents well. But that's not the entire story, if you know what I mean. So again, some more shots. I wanted to kind of show it the way it was shown to Lorraine, and it explains why she ended up buying it from eBay. You know, you can show still shots of a machine without it operating, without stitch offs. And if that's how you make your buying decisions, okay, you're going to get a machine then with the hope that it's going to do what it's supposed to do. Well, this machine, between the rust, the cracked cam stack, and so many adjustments, I can't even number them, that had to be made to this machine to get it to a workable state, coupled with the fact that this machine that was sold to Lorraine did not even have a take-up arm. And if you're brand new to sewing, the take-up arm is this little arm here that extends out from this area of the machine and it goes up and down as you're sewing. This machine didn't even have a take-up arm, which means it wasn't even capable of sewing from that standpoint, let alone all the rust and all the other things going on with it. So I say it all the time, buyer beware. If you buy from eBay and you are a buyer that looks only at the appearance of things, kind of like the cover of the book, you may get lucky, or you may, like most of the machines that end up here from eBay, you may end up in that bigger group of folks that get something that you're not expecting. Not in a good way either. So more shots of this machine. Again, you can understand, looking at it from the outside, why Lorraine Workman would elect to purchase this machine from eBay. It looks pretty good. It looks like it's been well maintained from the outside. There's our foot controller, extension bed, and I don't know if there were more cams that Lorraine got with this, but she got a single cam that by the pictures on the machine, it matches it, but it had a flaw in it where it was completing most of the pattern and then it would stop completing the pattern and you get like the equivalent of an offset zigzag instead. So I ended up partnering up Lorraine's machine with 3 of my Colormatic cams, and as you would have seen if you saw the other premiere, again that happened on Monday, January 11th at 6 p.m., then you would have seen that machine so flawlessly. And it's not just the cams, obviously, it's all the other stuff that was done to it as well. Here's a caddy that came with the machine, and it had all kinds of goodies in it that would have, excuse me for a second, all kinds of other goodies with it that would have come with the machine when Lorraine bought it, along with an original owner's manual for the 6370. And it really is a comprehensive manual. Generally, Viking and later Husqvarna, they both did a very good job. A very good job. Both Husqvarna and Viking, and eventually Husqvarna Viking, did a very good job in providing comprehensive manuals. And what this sales receipt is showing, Lorraine is not the original owner. She's the second owner. But she bought this machine from the seller on eBay, who probably got it from the original owner. I don't know what the history is on it. But look at what they paid for it originally. And this would have been out in Washington State, $905.25 after tax. And the original owner paid for it in full and then picked it up, presumably. And that would have been Kathy Lewis. Kathy Lewis out in Edmonds, Washington. So this was not a cheap, inexpensive machine. This was not a Walmart caliber machine. No offense to my friends that work at Walmart. This was a high-end, top-notch machine from the 1980s. And close to $1,000 back in the 1980s. That's the equivalent of a lot more money now. So it just gives you an idea of the caliber of what this 6370 represented to that brand new owner out in Washington State, and certainly to Lorraine as well, who bought it through eBay from this person selling it. Original registration owner's card as well. It's great to have this providential information, and Lorraine got it through this seller on eBay. Unfortunately, the seller on eBay didn't know anything about the machine and did not prepare it for sewing and for success, which is why it ended up here at the workshop. But the end of the story is it sews better than when it was bought from that shop out in Washington State now, that's for sure. Just taking the bobbin case out, kind of checking that out a little bit. Husqvarna's, if you're not aware of it, they have original bobbin cases, and then there also are aftermarket bobbin cases offered now, and you don't always get the same results. Any of the aftermarket things, whether they're bobbin cases, bobbins, or anything else, are probably not generally going to be made to the spec that the original ones were. They might be really close, but they might be even a thousandth of an inch off, and it will create problems for you. So here I'm starting to take the raceway apart on Lorraine Workman's Husqvarna, on her Viking, excuse me, on her Viking. I always twist those two together because they're so intertwined, aren't they? So on her Viking 6370, and what I'm noticing right away is that retainer plate. If you can see it in the shot, I'll kind of zoom in on it. That retainer plate, like many of the retaining plates, has gnarled edges to it from that thread racing past it for such a long extended period of time. It basically creates like ridges, and what that ends up causing intermittently is thread breaks and a variety of other challenges as that sewer is trying to use the machine. So one of the things I always check for when I do a comprehensive service on a machine that comes to the workshop, whether it came by way of eBay like this one or whether it comes directly from the owner, I always check for that issue. Now, one of the other issues that this machine had was extensive rust. The socket itself for the light was completely rusted where the light had actually broken off in it because of that. And I believe Lorraine's husband was going to try to jump in and help out, and she was like, nope, sending it to Scott. Thank you, dear, thank you very much, but that's not going to happen. I want an expert to work on it. So I ended up having to replace that entire light socket assembly because it was in a real bad state as a result of rust. Give me just 1 second. I just have to send a quick message out here. I have a good friend that's getting ready to go on vacation for 2 weeks, and I'm kind of highlighting the fact that this individual only has about 5 minutes left in their shift. Hold on just a second here. Okay, got it. Got it, got it, got it. Good. All right. So now let me turn my volume down and make sure that I don't have any messages ringing through. So again, this socket was completely rusted out and had all kinds of other rust obviously as well. And what you're seeing right there is what's left of the bulb assembly that had snapped off in there. Someone at some point had tried to get that light out of there, but the rust was so extensive going through that entire socket assembly that the bulb ended up snapping off, and it is what it is. But sometimes when metal gets so degraded, you're not able to save that area because there's electronics involved with it, there's plastic, and the best solution instead of a band-aid approach is just to replace the entire socket assembly. I could have gotten it working, but it would not have been 100%. It would have been about 90%, and that's below my standards. So you'll see me eventually going through the process of running that light cord back through the body of the machine, which is really a pain in the neck. It really is, because there's a metal coil, almost like a spring, that you have to thread that cord from the power assembly for the light all the way back through it going down, and it gets snagged, it gets caught. It's blah, blah. Don't even make me think about it. So what we're looking at right here is part of the motor assembly, which also had quite a bit of servicing needed on it as well. And here I'm just digging out a bunch of junk. There's a combination of lint and grease and oil and all kinds of other things that are jammed in around. At this point we're kind of looking at the raceway area. We're bouncing all over the machine as I'm trying to assess the needs of it. Here I've taken part of the cover off of this machine, and because the cover piece that goes on here is plastic and it has little plastic peg feet on it, you got to be really careful because it's fit on there, it's kind of fitted around the motor, and you've got to maneuver it off without cracking those plastic pegs or cracking the actual plastic housing for the machine. And what we're starting to look at now is the bobbin winding assembly. We're looking at the motor mounts. We're looking at the original Husqvarna belt that is on this machine from the original install at the factory back in the 80s. And all of that needed attention as well. And this has a fairly complex bobbin winding assembly. It's not super straightforward where you kind of just pop it out and pop it in, that sort of thing. It's got spring tensioners, it's got swivels, it's got all kinds of stuff going on that you got to be really mindful of that as you're taking it out, taking it apart, and as you're putting it back together and servicing all of those points as well. It requires quite a bit of attention. And what we're looking at right there is the original belt, the long belt that would have come with this machine. It's original from Husqvarna, or from Viking as it would be in this case, coming from Sweden. And it's a good V-style belt, but I always replace the V-style belts on the Swedish Beauties with a cogged version of the V-style belt. All the same specs, but it has those additional teeth added to it so that it grips those pulleys better. So again, my goal of always trying to make the machine better than it was when it left the factory, that even goes all the way to the belt replacements for these machines. So there you're just seeing kind of a side shot. If you can't see it in the shot, the belt was had some cracks in it. It also had glazing on it as well, so it needed to be replaced. Again, it's going to be running over a pulley down here and a pulley up here, and then there's a swivel in the middle that, as the machine is operating, is pivoting back and forth to allow that belt to flux and to act almost as kind of an auto tensioner for that belt. And if you don't install it correctly, reinstall it correctly, and if you don't service it correctly, then it's not going to function correctly. So here you're starting to see some of the issues that I ran into. Some of this is rust, some of this is varnishing, but a lot of it was rust. And we're kind of looking at the bottom of the machine through the side rear plate of it. Some more more stuff becoming evident. Again, when you're looking at the pretty pictures on eBay, you're not going to be seeing stuff like this, and that's out of focus a little bit, but that's rust. Also extending into the machine as well. Again, we're kind of looking at the rear of the machine straight down towards the needle bar and the presser foot bar. And also, as the note from Lorraine had told me when the machine was sent to me, the presser foot bar did not work either, and part of that was rust. But also it needed some additional servicing beyond that. Now, to give you an idea of how extensive the rust was, take a look at these feed dogs. That is not real common to see it that bad on a Swedish Beauty, but that is all rust going all the way through the bolts that hold it on, around the feed dog feet itself, underneath it. You'll see what I mean. And there were additional pictures that I posted that were shared in the original premiere, again, that released on January 11th at 6 p.m. Central Time, that you'll want to check out, because that even tells the tale more about how extensive the rust was through this eBay purchased machine that Lorraine got. You know, I hate to beat up the sellers on eBay, because I used to be one of them. But I got so disgusted by people trying to mirror and match what I was doing, to trick people into thinking that the machines that they were selling were equal to the ones that were coming from my workshop, that I got to a point of disgust. I just stepped away from the eBay thing entirely. And all I do now is sell a couple of manuals and belts and stuff like that through eBay, because I just didn't want to be a part of that circle anymore. It's kind of like being an honest politician among dishonest ones. You can be as honest as the day is long, but people will start to associate you with those people that are dishonest. And when customers like this, a good customer from Indiana, Lorraine Workman, spends good money to buy a machine through eBay and then has an experience like this, I mean, I don't want to be a part of that anymore. I could sell a lot of machines there, but I would sooner sell fewer machines to select buyers that contact me or that I meet through eBay, not through eBay, rather through YouTube or through Facebook, and take care of the customer that way. I don't want to be in that same pond with the charlatans. Hate to say it. So here I'm starting to take off that feed dog assembly and trying to address the issues with that, and underneath it and everywhere else too. I'm just holding it in my hand there, kind of surveying it and putting together the best plan to address the needs of that feed dog part. So, distant shot of the raceway, more servicing, more cleaning, more mitigation, making adjustments now because the machine is clearly out of whack. I think that's a technical term, out of whack. It might be. Here we're looking at some of the rust extending down that main shaft that ties into the pitman arm. And you can see right there in the shot, it is junked up. A lot of that is rust. It's not just dirt and grease and junk. Even Dr. Singer is taking notice of it, very concerned, knowing that this Swedish Beauty is very troubled, but knowing it's in the right place. Mr. Bean is just being Mr. Bean. He doesn't, well, I'll just leave it at that. Now we're looking at the workbench and just how busy things get. Multiple things are happening at the same time. I've said this before. Because of my level of experience, I can be working on the raceway, then I can pop over to the pulley system over near the bobbin winding, then I can be back on the motor, then I can be pulling out and cleaning wire wraps on the motor as well. I mean, it all happens simultaneously. I almost said rapidly, but that's misleading, because to get this machine up to where it is now, where it could be premiered on the 11th of January, probably about 34 hours of work, conservatively. Verifying electronics. Also, I'm having to disconnect the old wiring for the lamp assembly that's rusted through in preparation for putting a brand new light assembly on it. And those tiny little screws are offset embedded screws, and they all have to be checked. And if there's a wire connected to them, that wire has to be checked and insulated as well. So there's quite a few steps involved, not all of which I'm showing. So, and this is part of the assembly that was damaged. I'm just taking a look at it, seeing if there's anything salvageable at all, which I finally determined that there wasn't. Now I'm kind of looking at the cam stack. The cam stack also, and this is a machine again that a customer bought in good faith from eBay. And that seller probably, again, because they don't have the knowledge, did not know that it was cracked there. And it's cracked out of view on the bottom. I probably show a shot of that as well. But I say it all the time, folks. You're very smart. That's why you're in this classroom. You're very smart, and some of you are either just followers of mine, some of you are maybe fellow restorers, maybe sellers. I have a lot of people that are restorers that follow my work as well, because there's a lot to learn. And all I can say is it just goes back to, again, if you buy from an unproven source, and anyone for the most part on eBay is going to be an unproven source unless they really can document their track record, then you're rolling the dice. It's like going to Las Vegas. No offense, Super B. It's like going to Las Vegas and rolling the dice or playing the roulette table, hoping to win, but knowing that the odds are that the house is going to win the majority of the time. And you're probably going to be in that majority. So continue to dig into the machine. This is part of the light, the rear of the light assembly that I'm taking apart. And there you can see, and I wish this shot showed in more detail how bad off it was, but it just gives you an idea of you know, what I replaced with a brand new one. A lot of springs on this model 6370 that have to be adjusted. A lot of springs. Distant shot again, just showing the busyness of the workbench. And here I'm starting to try to thread that new wiring for the new light assembly through the machine. It is a, I'll just say it, it's a booger. It's a booger. And this would be the new light assembly. And I'm starting to prepare to try to get it threaded through the machine. Again, it's not a matter of just dropping a cord down and running it out the back. You've got to thread it through this wire coil, which Viking designed, and Husqvarna. They designed it to safeguard that wiring inside the machine where there's oil and there's mechanics and everything else. And this little wrap right here you can see is where I'm trying to use a threading type method to get that to wiggle through that very tight constricted coil so I can eventually bring it out to the back and wire it into the machine. It was a process. It was, oh. Yeah, and there's disassembly involved as well. There's, you know, I didn't even ring the bell yet. I'll ring the bell for the extent of the work for the wiring and all that. So, but yeah, it is a handful. My fellow electrician friends that do some very, very complicated wiring in certain applications, commercial or otherwise, I've always respected them, but when you take on a task like this, it causes you to respect them even more. So it looks like at this point I finally got it pulled through, and now I'm going to wire it into the main board. And that's actually part of the old wiring assembly just sitting up there. And some of the work is pretty fine work, I would say. So I do use my magnifiers just to make sure I'm not missing anything. And because those recessed little bolts are teeny tiny, it does take a special screwdriver to do that with. Now I've got it wired in, I've got the power connected, so I'm just checking the circuitry to make sure that everything is reading correctly. And I don't know if you can see it in the shop, but the red light is on, nice and steady, which means we've got a good solid connection. The light is working. The light will be working. No, it is working. Now I'm looking at the shot. There it is. I was going to say I didn't have it turned on yet, but it is turned on there. It's just kind of up into that well. And that well is a little bit tricky too with the pivot method that it uses to get that seated in there correctly, so that it rotates up and down freely and it's not awkward. I recently got contacted by a nice lady that had, and this is totally off topic, but it relates kind of to what I'm saying as far as the tolerances of getting this installed correctly so that it rotates up and down properly like it's supposed to. This lady at 8 years old got a Singer 50D, which is so handy. I've shown that on this channel before. And she watched my one of my premieres on that machine, and I had gone into some of the maintenance on it. And so she decided to be adventurous, take it apart, clean it up and everything. And when she put it back together, it would not run. And what it ended up being was a tolerance issue with that plastic housing, where when she put it back together, it was just offset enough that it was causing binding, and so it wouldn't allow the motor to run freely. But all is well now, thankfully. All is well. So here I'm just, I think these are out of sequence a little bit. I'm trying to work that wiring through that coil harness that's inside of the machine. Yeah, I'm going to click through these fast because this is painful even to rewatch them again. Yeah, these are out of sequence. Here I'm connecting it, and the other ones I've already connected and tested it and everything. So, but and here it's showing part of that housing for the light that has to fit up into this very narrow cavity and be positioned correctly so it rotates properly. Also the open raceway as well. And here you can see in the shot, this is in the raceway area above it, and more evidence of rust in the machine. Yeah, you can see that. I'll kind of zoom in on it a little bit. But that's the tip of the iceberg. It was just incredibly infested with rust. Here as well, you can see, again, not viewable to a seller, but this is all rusted back here as well. And here I've taken off the side panel, the rear panel on the machine. I'm starting to concentrate on those sway, the sway bars that are part of the pivot system for tensioning the belt. I'm focusing on the belt, I'm focusing on the balance wheel, I'm focusing on, again, with this model, it's going to have cogged pulleys. So I'm looking at the cog pulleys as well that have to be serviced and cleaned because they've got those little intricate grooves in them. And I'm trying to get all that squared away. And here I'm showing a contrast between the original belt from Sweden, which is this one right here, and then my replacement belt. They're identical on specs, but mine have the, again, the teeth, the cog teeth, so that they bite into those pulleys more and create a better positive traction situation. Again, the Husqvarna Swedish Beauties have belts that drive them. They do not have gear-to-gear drive, like a number of the Singer models and some of the FOF models as well. So you've got to give that machine every advantage so at launch you're not going to have slippage issues. And here I'm trying to get that belt fitted. Mine is a replacement belt, so it has the same specs, but it's going to ride over those pulleys a little bit different than a standard V-style belt. So I've got to check a number of things on that. Distance shot, busyness, all kinds of crazy stuff going on. More rust to mitigate. Again, rust was a major issue for this eBay purchase machine that Lorraine got. And it's pitted into the metal too, so it took quite a bit of work to get it off. And then again, once you mitigate rust, you always have to treat that metal so that that rust is not going to try to infiltrate it again. It's looking better, isn't it? Yeah. Again, if you went to a general service center, let's say you bought a machine on eBay and it wasn't working properly, like Lorraine's, for a wide variety of reasons, they would not go this deep into the machine. There's just no way. Not unless you, unless you pay them by the hour. We're talking probably, for the work that I did, if you had gone to a standard service center, if they were competent to do it, and I just have to be honest, they probably wouldn't know what to do. But if they did by chance have a vintage guy there that understood the machines and was able to service them, you'd be looking at a bill of probably about $600, about $600 to do all the work that I did, including the parts that were needed as well. Actually, probably closer to $700 with parts. So it gives you an idea. Again, is it cheaper to go to eBay and roll the dice and buy a machine that on the surface might look okay, but then all of a sudden you get it and it's like Lorraine's that has all of these issues, including an infestation of rust. It's missing the take-up arm. God knows, if I went down the list, we'd be here for a while, me describing all the things that had to be done. Or is it cheaper just come to me and let me source you a machine and prepare a machine and premiere a machine for you, as many of my very smart customers have done? I think it's pretty obvious, isn't it? It's pretty obvious what makes more sense. It's always tempting to try to save a buck, but it's like buying that used car. You're hoping to save money by spending less, and you end up spending a lot more. It becomes a money pit. So here I also found part of the housing that secures the motor to the base of the machine was snapped off, so I had to re-drill that because prior to doing that, the motor was not securely mounted, and it was agitating like this from side to side when the machine was trying to run, which is definitely not a good thing. Some extra parts that were literally not even attached properly to the machine. They were just kind of floating in there. Like I said, you buy on eBay, if you want to do that and you want to roll the dice, whatever. I'll just say that. But I don't know what the guys were doing in the box. There they are. I think I was getting ready to ship them somewhere. So those are all the pictures that you missed if you watched the premiere that again occurred on January 11th. Those are the pictures that I forgot to add because they happened several weeks before the machine was ultimately premiered. I had shared them on Facebook, but they were not part of the premiere that occurred when I shared the progress shot, so I wanted to include that. The other thing I wanted to cover real quick with you, let me break away to the other workbench, is this is post-premiere, obviously. So the machine has already done its magical dance beautifully. Again, if you haven't seen that premiere that was released on Lorraine Workman's 6370 on January 11th, Monday, at 6 p.m. Central Time, you got to check that out and just look at a machine that went literally from the grave to dancing on the mountaintops. That's the best way to describe what pilgrimage this 6370 took. And now I'm at the point now where I'm preparing it to head back to Indiana, to go back to Lorraine so that she can enjoy this machine as she was hoping to do when she bought it on eBay, and that just was not in the cards. And unfortunately, that is a story that is told more often than it needs to be, because folks on eBay, I'm just going to be honest, many of them, not all of them, many of them hear that vintage sewing machines are a way to make a quick buck, and so they scoop them up at garage sales and God knows where else they find them, and then they try to sell them as fully restored on eBay, just as they did with this one for Lorraine out of Indiana. So I'm very excited to be at this step now where I'm going to be sending this machine back, and when she gets it from the workshop, she already knows that it is going to dance on the mountaintops, and that all the issues that this seller gave to her when they sold her this machine as a machine that should be ready to get the job done are now taken care of. So that's the good stuff. But this is a little bit of a tricky packing job. That's what I'm in the middle of right now. So I wanted to just, I'm not going to go into all of it with you, but I just wanted to highlight for you, if you have someone selling you a machine, or if you're selling a machine and trying to ship it, and it comes with one of these little plastic covers. And normally the carrying handle is going to stick through the top of here. But when I'm shipping a machine, I'm going to fold that down flat. I've already, on the inside of here that you can't see, I've already stretch wrapped that 6370. I did not put the foot controller in the harp space, because if I had done that, I would not have been able to fit this cover over the machine. So I stretch wrapped it, sealed it off, went over it with strapping tape, just like I showed you recently on that shipping premiere of that 201-2 heading back to Avon Park, Florida, to my friend down there. And then I went around the entire machine with bubble wrap, 3 to 4 layers of bubble wrap. So, and then I went over that obviously with stretch wrap, and then went over that as well with strapping tape. So just think of it, on the inside of this plastic cover, that machine is cocooned with about 4 layers of bubble wrap, and then I slid this cover over the top of it. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around this plastic case, which already arrived at the workshop with a number of cracks in it. It's just not designed to travel. It's designed basically as a protector, as a dust cover for the machine. If you got little kids, it keeps their little hands away from the knobs and everything. So I do want to send it back to Lorraine as a resource, but I had to go through this cover and re-glue about 3 or 4 parts that had cracked in being sent to the workshop. And I'm going to try to encapsulate it in stretch wrap. Then I'm going to go over it with strapping tape, and then I'm going to cocoon all of this with about 5 or 6 layers of bubble wrap, and then go over it with stretch wrap and then strapping tape and all that. Basically, we're going to have a cocoon within a cocoon. It's already cocooned on the inside with 3 to 4 layers of bubble wrap, and then this outer area is going to be cocooned as well with probably another 6, maybe even up to 8 layers of bubble wrap around this after I go around it with stretch wrap. And I'm going to go around it with stretch wrap and strapping tape just to try to give this as much rigidity as possible and to keep it from cracking further. The machine is going to be fine on the inside, but this cover, like I said, already has a number of areas, probably 2 to 3 inches, some even longer, of cracks already that I've repaired. So I'm going to see if I can get it back to Indiana with the repairs that I've done on this cover as well, so that it remains a resource for Lorraine down there if she decides to use it. She'll probably be using the machine so much she won't have it covered much, but if she's got little kids, grandkids, or otherwise coming to the house, she'll probably pop that handle through the top and slide this over the top to safeguard the machine. Because I've had some machines come to the workshop where folks just have them sitting out there, and grandkids or great grandkids come over to visit. I'll tell you one thing, that tension spring, that sure looks like a tempting thing to mess around with, because I had to replace a couple of those for folks where the grandkids decided it was a slinky and they wanted to stretch it, and it already happened. What are you going to do? So the cover does have some value, but it's just not designed really for a lot of travel. It gets, especially when it's not packed to the max like I do, it tends to get banged around a little bit, and it's just plastic. So hopefully, keep our fingers crossed. I'm going to do my best to safeguard it going back to Indiana, and then it'll be a resource. And obviously, I've already packed the foot controller, which also in this case has the plug-in for the power cord as well. It's all a single unit, and that's already been packed so that can go into the tote. And then I'm also going to add bubble wrap and my normal process to this caddy. And this caddy is going to have the 2 of the 3 cams that are going to be going with the machine that did not come with the machine originally, that I did all of the sew-offs on that premiere on January 11th. And you'll want to see those. There's some beautiful decorative outputs from this 6370. So these are the 2 cams that I'm including with the machine going back, along with these. This is cam B and C, and then I have cam A already in the back of the machine. And then this is the original cam B that came with the machine that had some flaws with it, and it was causing, I think I already explained this, but I'll explain it again. If a cam has a flaw in it, or if it's not the right fit for that Colormatic machine, then what it's going to do is it's going to sew part of the pattern, and it's going to stop sewing the pattern and generate some sort of a zigzag, wonky type stitch, and then it'll resume sewing the pattern again. So I didn't want Lorraine to have to be facing that with this cam that was sent with the machine from the original seller on eBay. So I gave her a brand new cam, A Colormatic, B, and C, that are the proper series to work with this 6370. Does that make sense? And then inside of here as well, I've got all of those extensive sew-offs that you would have seen if you watched that premiere on January 11th, along with all the original goodies that came with this machine that Lorraine sent with it when it came to the workshop. So I've got all that cocooned in here, and then I'll bubble wrap this, and then this will slide into the tote as well in that bed, that field of peanuts. This could not be on the machine and allow me to properly pack the machine, so I'm packing it separately. The same thing is true of this extension bed with the old belt and all of the providential material, the owner's manual, and the extension bed as well. This is also going to be packed separately, and then it's going to be carefully, obviously wrapped in bubble wraps, you know, my normal process, and then it's going to be slid into that tote adjacent to the main body of the machine. So all of this will be in the tote, and it's the safest way. It's the safest way to get this back to Lorraine. You know, all of these components wrapped apart from the main body machine and the cover, instead of trying to stick all that in there or trying to, you know what I'm saying. You got to be smart when you're shipping, and the smartest way to get it there safe is to do all three of these things separately. So there you go. So I just wanted to explain that, just because it's a little bit of a different approach when you're dealing with one of these plastic covers that came with a lot of machines, not just the Vikings, but a lot of makers would use this sort of a cover that acts as kind of a protection and a dust cover when it's in a stationary place, not when you're shipping. So I'll finish this packing job for Lorraine, and again, I would strongly encourage you check out that premiere that would have aired on January 11th at 6 p.m. Central Time. You can watch it on the channel, and then you can couple it with this impromptu premiere as well as a follow-up, and just really appreciate a couple things. One is, here, let me come out on this shot because I've been kind of in the back wings the whole time here. I want you to appreciate a couple things about this, and that is, am I going to be tall enough? Here, I'll lean against this. I want you to appreciate a couple things about this impromptu follow-up premiere that I'm doing right now. One is, it just shows you that a hopeless, one foot in the grave type machine can come to the workshop, and it can leave here dancing on the mountaintops, sewing better than it did, performing better than it did when it first was purchased out there in Washington State back in the 80s for almost $1,000. So I want you to have a sense of hopefulness. If you make the mistake, or if you make the decision, let me say it that way, if you make the decision to buy a machine on eBay or Etsy or Bonanza or any of those other places out there, and you end up like Lorraine getting a machine that comes to you and it is not what you expected, you know, it's missing the take-up arm, it's got rust rapid through it and all that kind of stuff. It's a mess. Don't think that that's, okay, I got to write that off as a loss. Especially if you have a seller that sold it to you that all of a sudden says, hey, I said no returns. I had pictures, you know, it is what it is. You know, you did that to it. As I've had some customers tell me, they literally will have an eBay seller or another seller say to them that that customer is to blame for them selling a shoddy machine. That makes me madder than a wet hornet, let me tell you, because that customer has spent good money, has stepped forward in faith and bought a machine, and then they got screwed, I guess is the simplest way to put it. But I want you to be hopeful, because we can make miracles happen here at the workshop. We, like me, and the King, and Dr. Singer, and Mr. Bean, Herr Obermeister, and all the other good friends that I have here. But Lorraine even sent in her note when she sent this machine to the workshop, she says, I don't know if it's possible to get this out of the grave or not. Well, We deal with the impossibilities here all the time. I say that again and again and again, but the evidence of it is right behind me. And if you watch that premiere and you look at all the shots that I share in that premiere on January 11th, and then these additional shots that I shared today, you're going to be like, you know what? That's a miracle place right there. It really is. And that's through a lot of hard work and tenacity. It's not an easy thing. It's not waving a magic wand. It's not rubbing a genie lamp and then all of a sudden that troubled machine is made whole again. It's a lot of tenuous hard work, and I'm happy to do it to help a customer out, especially when they've had the misfortune of getting the wrong machine in one of those sales venues. It could be Facebook Marketplace is another place a lot of people buy machines trying to save money, and then all of a sudden they get a machine that is troubled. So have the faith, have the confidence, and you could do like our new moderator did. Sunny is how she and I got acquainted. She bought a machine through Goodwill online, but she told those Goodwill people, do not send it to me. I want you to package it up. I want you to send it to the workshop in Wisconsin to Scott so he can go over this machine before it ever gets to me. So that is really the smart approach. If you want to try to save money and you want to buy in one of these other venues, I can't dissuade you from doing that if you're determined to do it. But have them send it here instead of sending it to you, because then otherwise you pay them typically shipping to get the machine to you. You get it there, it's not what you thought. You find all these problems with it. It's not doing what it's supposed to be doing. Then you got to pay shipping to send it to the workshop. Plus you have to pay return shipping to get it sent back to you after it gets done getting properly restored here at the workshop. So why would you go down that road? It doesn't make sense, right? So if you want to buy from another venue instead of just reaching out to me and getting a machine from here, which you know you're going to get a quality machine, and you're determined, I want to buy it through eBay, I want to buy it through Facebook Marketplace, I want to buy it wherever, then have that seller send it here so I can go over it before you ever touch the machine, so that you don't have to go through that frustration. But I would say the simplest thing is just get a machine from me. If I don't have it, I'll do what I've done for other customers, and I will source you a premium machine that I've verified and that will be sent to the workshop, that I can make sure it's running at the top of its game before it ever reaches your sewing room in your home. Okay? All right, fair enough? Yeah, all right. So, back to my packing job, and this ends this impromptu. And Lorraine, I'm pleased to report, once I get done packing this, it's going to get shipped, heading back to the great state of Indiana. Good stuff.